Starship Troopers Extermination. Finally, the full release on the 11th of October 2024. It first released in early access on May 17th, 2023. So yeah, it was about a year and a half in early access. What has changed? What did we get? And how good is it now that is in full release? Let's go have a look. But first, let's do a little bit of a recap. Starship Troopers Extermination is a 16 co-op player horde-based extraction shooter, and yes, that is a bit of a mouthful. But thankfully, the idea is quite simple. Kill bugs, get to objective, complete objective, kill more bugs, and leave. This is the primary gameplay loop we're going to be working with. There is of course some variation in objectives, side objectives, and even a few boss battles sprinkled here and there. But now the question comes, so what has changed since my last video that went over what was Starship Troopers Extermination and now? Well, quite a lot actually. First up, we have the changes to the classes. In my previous video, it was 3 classes that was used across the board. These 3 classes were some basic classes that you could very much fine-tune to be very specific to what you want and what you need. However, now they have broken those 3 classes into 6 different classes with their own special abilities and specializations. So let's have an in-depth look of the new classes and what they entail. First up, we have the Assault Troopers. The 2 classes that are part of the Assault Trooper category is the Ranger and the Sniper, with the focal points of the category being reconnaissance and mobility. So let's first focus on the Sniper class. With the Sniper class, your mobility specialization is in verticality, having the capability of gaining vantage points on high perches, as well as having powerful and precise weaponry. You are the team's big game hunter, the death from above. The Sniper doesn't also just bring weapons to the fight. No, they bring a set of perks and capabilities that enhance everybody's fighting prowess. The Sniper also takes its role as a reconnaissance unit very seriously, having the capability of scanning enemies with their scan dart gun, which allows them to be seen by everyone. All of these things make the Sniper a cornerstone of your team. This gives everyone an excellent idea of what's on the battlefield, killing larger targets, as well as amplifying your own team's capability of dishing damage. A must-have for any team in my personal opinion. And now onto the other Assault Trooper, the Ranger. The Ranger is the nimble close quarters expert, being capable of moving around very quickly in any space using their jump jets that specialize in horizontal mobility. The emphasis of the Ranger's arsenal is search and destroy. With high mobility weapons and close quarter specialization, they bring forth the TDW Marita SMG or the Shotgun Slugger. The Ranger class is an excellent choice for anyone willing to get in the thick of it with the Arachnids. Although not a very easy class to learn or master, it can be quite rewarding, and more times than not, you'll be the one to get everyone out of that very sticky situation. And now moving on to the next category of troopers. The Heavy Troopers. In this category, we will find the 2 classes that are meant to either hold the line or dish out a lot of damage with explosives, this being the Guardian and the Demolisher. But first, let's take a look at a very familiar class, the Guardian, also previously known as the Bastion. The Guardian and Bastion are actually quite strikingly similar, both of them having the Fortifier abilities as well as the focus of holding the line against a torrent of bugs. The Guardian is basically just the new name for the Bastion. They are very similar in almost every aspect except a few changes here and there. For example, they have new weaponry, and some of their more demolition-focused arsenal has been moved over to the Demolisher. However, they still play basically the same. You are there to hold the line, you are there to hunker down and try to keep the bugs at bay as much as possible by using your Marita Mark III saw or a new rifle that is an electromagnetic rifle called the E-Pulse 88 ESW, which is another point that E-weapons have now entered the game. While the Guardian is very familiar for everyone who has previously played the game, or most games actually, the tank of the group, I'm going to move on to the Demolisher. That brings a whole new variety to any team. With the Demolisher, your primary ability is to bring explosives to any fight and every fight. This is very much seen as their primary ability is to fire grenades from their shoulder-mounted grenade launcher rapidly. Another interesting fact about the shoulder-mounted grenade launcher is that the shoulder-mounted grenades are picked from the grenade that you have picked in the loadout, which means you have access to incendiary grenades and cluster grenades and a whole slew of grenades that you can choose to just fire upon your enemies when you choose the loadout. And the explosions don't stop there, no. They bring the Chihong grenade launcher as one of their primary specialist weapons, as well as a specialist grenade called the lure grenade, which draws enemies into it and then after a few seconds explodes. The Demolisher is an excellent class for anyone wanting to destroy swaths of enemies with explosives and doesn't mind getting your own hands possibly blown off. Which is a very fun and little interesting tidbit. As you can see in the model, the hand of the trooper is a robotic hand, which is a nice callback to the movies as well. Another interesting little quirk that I found while playing the Demolisher is that they are excellent at clearing out Arachnid bodies. They are one of the best at doing it. Not the best, there's another class for that, but they are definitely the second best for doing it. But speaking of the other classes, let's move on to the two support troopers. The two classes that are in the support category are the medics and the engineer. Now, usually in games, support classes are always looked over. They are usually seen as not bringing a lot to the table, especially when regards with weaponry. You aren't the sniper that can one-shot an enemy. You aren't the fast-moving ranger that can kill something very quickly. No. You are the support. However, I feel that in Starship Troopers Extermination, the support classes have actually been very well rounded and are excellent classes to choose for anyone, if not actually just to the point that they are the backbone of each team. So let's have a look at the medic first. The medic brings a ton of healing gear and equipment. This equipment ranges from first aid darts as well as a triage drone that can be deployed anywhere at any time to quickly revive as many allies as possible. Now, the weaponry might be seen as quite standard, but they are easily the most important member of any team, keeping everyone alive, healthy, and fighting no matter what. So next up, let's go look at the engineer. Now this is where things can get quite interesting. The engineer is a master of construction and logistics, having perks to be capable of building entire structures in mere seconds, where others might have to use an entire team, as well as being capable of reinforcing said structures. They also have the capability of clearing out Arachnid bodies in a record time. This is the class that is best suited to do it. They can clean up entire hordes in mere minutes. An excellent choice for any horde mode. Speaking of horde mode, their ability also grants them the capability of building outside of normal allocated build time as well as outside the allocated build area. Meaning they could build turrets or whatever defensive structures they need outside of the build area. This feature comes truly in handy when trying to hold a choke point or to advance the mission. They are the real backbone of any team. And their arsenal complements them to a T as well, with their primary weapon being a flamethrower that is excellent at cooking bugs or clearing out bodies. They also bring tons of ammunition to every fight, meaning that everyone can fight for longer as long as the engineers thereby. As you can see, the classes have now encompassed a larger amount of playstyles and specializations. Personally, I think that was an excellent move by the developers. Breaking the classes from 3 to 6 into more specialized units is the better move. But now, it's time to move on to what you'll be facing, the enemies, the Arachnid swarm. There's only been a few major changes to the enemies in Starship Troopers Extermination, mainly that now enemies have armor on different parts of their bodies. This changes the game entirely from just normal damage. You have to now figure out where's the weakest points and how to reach them and shoot upon them. This means that every fight is a more mental game, trying to figure out, as much as it is a combat situation, is also a puzzle. Trying to figure out and angle yourself in such a way that you hit the soft spots. This is also particularly true for the more heavily armored enemies. And in addition to armor on each enemy, we now have a boss battle. Yes, the tanker bug, as seen in the movie. Before we get there, let's quickly go and look at all the units you will be fighting against. Let's first start it off with the smallest and easiest unit to fight, the drone. They are small, squishy, and there's a lot of them. They're mainly there to run interference for you and to mainly pull away your attention from the bigger warriors. Speaking of warriors, the warriors are seen as the backbone of the swarm. Unending in numbers and equally dangerous alone, they are going to be your biggest trouble no matter what. Next up, we have the gunner. The gunner is their answer to our long-range snipers, capable of taking you out from a long distance accurately and very quickly. They are a danger and also a high priority target for any sniper to take out first. And then we move on to the more heavily armored units. The biggest and meanest thing on the battlefield usually, the Tiger is heavily armored all across its body and can only be punched through with either a heavy weapon or well-placed shots. And then we have the Royal Guard, a rarity to usually see outside of the Hive. They are many times more deadly than a Tiger and more difficult to kill, as they have heavier armor, are faster and a lot more aggressive. Still clad in heavy armor, we're going to go to the artillery bugs, the Grenadier and the Inferno. The Grenadier specializes in plasma artillery, hitting from far away and hard. The Inferno is a airburst napalm mix, deadly for any troopers caught in its fire. And now, let's move on to the two new additions. The first addition is the Bombardier, a small arachnid that you can barely see that rolls around the battlefield, but contains a nasty surprise if you don't see it quick enough. The equivalent to a grenade that hones in on you, a terrible fate for any trooper to face. And lastly, as mentioned previously, we have the tanker bug, a large, menacing figure on the battlefield. They pose a significant threat to every and all troopers who face them. With such heavy armor that is almost incapable of being penetrated by any and all weapons, they prove to be quite the menace no matter what you do. So it's going to require quite a bit of teamwork and heavy firepower to bring them down. Having now covered the classes and the enemies, let's get into what is the core of the gameplay. One of the new systems introduced with the new classes is a weapon mastery system. As you rank up, your weapons rank up individually as well. This unlocks modifications for your specific weapon, as well as at a certain point, you are then capable of wielding this weapon with any class you like. An interesting system that I actually quite like is what's called the traitor system. When you kill your fellow comrades or hurt the team too much, you get designated as a traitor, in which everybody will get points for your demise. However, you might actually also be banned because of your behavior. Mind you, it has rarely happened and I've only found one case where it has. Generally speaking, it is quite gracious and it won't be for accidental. Accidental things are accounted for quite well. At the core of any co-op or multiplayer game, we have game modes. Now, the game modes have mostly stayed the same throughout the game. The 4 core game modes, which are Assault and Secure, Arc, Horde Survival, and Hive Hunt. These have remained unchanged throughout all of the releases and everything. As Advanced and Secure is still a very simple aspect of going and securing small areas of territory, each time fighting off a wave of defense, and then moving on to the final battlefield, defending the Arc, which scans the underground area, and then moving on to extraction. Arc, or Arc Slam, which is also it's called, is the game mode where you have to build a base from scratch, collect resources, and eventually fuel the Arc. In which case, the moment the Arc is fueled, it will start a horde mode where you have to survive until the Arc can finish its scan, and then, as per usual, we leave. And then of course, we can't forget about horde survival. Surviving 10 waves of increasing difficulty until you can extract. And then lastly, we have Hive Hunt. Instead of 16 players, this is just a 4-player team going to the belly of the beast and destroying the hive from within. First up, we have Valaka, a desert hellscape where there's mostly just sand and more sand. Next, we have Agni Prime, a volcanic planet that looks extremely luscious and beautiful once you're down there, but from the sky, it quite literally looks like hell. The next addition is Planet X-11, or rather, it's a listening post for the Federation, where you have to go and try and defend the listening post from the Arachnid swarm. The map location X11 is mainly characterized by tight spaces as well as usually opening up in the final bits. However, it is also a lot of running and long distances. And finally, we have the full release planet, Boreas, which is mostly available for only a singular type of mode, the Galactic Front. Unfortunately, I've been trying to avoid this a little bit, but it can't be helped. The Galactic Front is a lot like the Galactic map in Helldivers. It is a progressive battling where everybody can contribute to an end goal. But unlike in Helldivers, it is more linear. Now, personally, the more linear nature of it, I feel does hurt it, as it doesn't feel as much as I'm contributing, more to just, I'm just trying to play the game. And it also brings up another point, is that in order to contribute, you must be part of a company, or at least that is as far as I could understand it, which is essentially a small clan system. I know that Helldivers have been requesting this for quite a while, but in here it does feel a little bit tacked on. It feels like you as a player, if you don't have a company, you aren't contributing to anything, you're just playing for the fun. Even in a company, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're contributing much. It's just things get done, a progress bar moves forward, and a bit of story is unlocked. It's a very slow-paced story in the end of the day, and I feel it could have been reworked a little bit, whereas with Helldivers, it feels like you're contributing to a major thing. There's constantly movement, things are happening, you're getting orders, you are actively participating. No matter what you do, you feel like you are a part of a greater war. Even though these companies and the Galactic War has the potential to be quite fun and interesting, it unfortunately didn't live up to the hype or standard that was around it. Another game mode, if you can call it as well, is actually just the tutorial. These are single-player chapters you can play to learn the game and its mechanics. An interesting idea, especially with story being around it, but that's also going to bring us neatly to the next topic that, unfortunately, is almost the nail in the coffin for the game. Despite this game's excellent design and some of the greatest ideas I've seen, it still falls short, unfortunately. The reason why it falls so short mainly rests on all of the bugs and glitches. There are a lot of bugs, especially when playing on the ice planet Boreas. The game still requires a decent amount of optimization and final pass-through with bugs, because even though the Arachnids are bugs, this is a different type of bug that needs to be squashed. And so we draw to the conclusion of the review. And what are my thoughts, you might ask? Well, it is a very fun game. I actually enjoyed quite a lot of aspects of it, and you can play it for hours and hours on end without much trouble. However, there are quite a bit of systems that need to be reworked, bugs that need to be fixed, and a few decisions that genuinely make me scratch my head. such as the company system in order to join the Galactic Front. Although an interesting idea, at the end of the day, it creates almost like exclusion club for those who wanted to play with their friends or just those who wanted to add to the Galactic Front, as well as the story aspect of it. It feels like a good idea, but it hasn't been fleshed out. A lot of this game, despite being out of early access and had that early access buffer, feels rushed and feels unfinished. There can still be a lot added, I feel, as well as so much more refined. At the end of the day, I would say it's a fun game to kill a bit of time with friends and even get more people to come with you. You might even start your own company and join in some company activities and have some fun. But overall, it will just keep you busy for a few hours until you run out of things to do with the only 4 possible game modes that there is. And once you've killed the boss once or twice and you know how to do it and you have a team who is quite well versed in it, it loses its charm. It comes down to there's a lack of content while also not being refined enough and polished enough for everyone. I am personally genuinely quite curious to see how this game is going to evolve further and if anything will change. However, I will keep you updated if anything changes in the future with the game on Game Pulse. And that is the review for Starship Troopers Extermination. If you liked the video, remember to subscribe and like. And that's all for now. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Bye!